he, chapter 22. Familiar faces. He circled the manor to have a good look at it, and he was surprised to notice that Iago's library had survived the fire, and it was located in the back of the manor. The windows had been enlarged to allow even more light to enter, and it was the largest part. Iago was not much of a socialite, so there wasn't any ballrooms installed in the manor. The backside did not match the front too well, and the two-story high library with its Gothic architecture did not go well with the Doric columns. And these decorative columns were to the first floor and to the second, and they were supported 3 balconies. The main building had 4 chimneys, and it was raised up to 1 floor, and the entrance had 2 staircases leading to the main floor, and it had this design to accommodate the mountain landscape. And the windows were made of wood and had a single railing, and the indoor curtains were white, and there was the side wing attached to the main building, and this one had small porticos overlooking the gardens. Overall, there were 3 small house complexes fused together, and the houses had simpler design with the same tile roof, and the first one had 2-story, and it was a large window in the second floor and 2 smaller ones. A lot of flower entries led towards the manor, and the place was as pretty as a picture. And he saw the servants working outside the house, and they were grooming the garden and doing the other house work sure, and the majority of the housemaids were elves. And the elves made ideal servants because of their age, and they had experience performing just about any task, and unlike human slaves, they were not too squeamish about they bore the task in silence, silently waiting for their time to strike. And they were the kind to wait for the human master to die or for their luck to change, and they were always waiting and watching for who knows what, and like it was their odd creepy habit, they watched as he circled around the house, and since they knew what he was, they simply ignored him, and it was futile to interfere with his antics. And they felt a little bit more at ease because he was more famous for killing humans than for killing their kind. Technically, all of the elves belonged to King Bersamet, and there was an unspoken rule in regards to their arrangement, and the slaves who worked for Bersamet's allies, in exchange the allies were forbidden from harming them physically. The terms of the service were stipulated in a binding contract, and should the allies break the contract, a terrible curse would befall them, or so they claimed. The elves themselves were overseen by their half-elf overlords, and they were in charge of sales, purchases, and administering punishment. And the half-elves lived in 2 worlds, and they got taxed on the elf forest and the slaves, and ran other errands for their elf king. It was one of these half-elves who intercepted a hit, and for being a half-elf, he looked identical to his kin. And he had the same blue eyes, blonde hair, and almond-shaped eyes, and the faces were all too very similar, at least for his untrained eye. For him, all of the elves looked alike. He waved at the and he saluted in return, and he walked out to the half-elf, and he dismounted, and he gave the reins to the horse, and then he said to horses, "Take care of yourself." The horse is simply named with his approval. And while taking Horsey away, the elf asked the horse, "Is it true that you can talk?" "No," said the horse with disdain. The elf chuckled when he heard this, and after they were gone, he walked up the staircase to enter the second floor. And the first floor, the interior was sparkling white, and the whiteness was unbroken by satin furniture and golden borders, and the color followed the hallway. And this clearness was broken when you entered the rooms, and the walls were painted in a soft pastel yellow color, and the floor was made of wood, with a Persian rug on the floor. And he found his way around the manor pretty easily, until it felt like he had been there before, and the manor was also felt familiar to us, and it was almost kind of creepy, almost like we were having a type of deja vu. And he eventually made his way towards the library, and this place was at least identical, and there were some additional books here and there, as well as new writing table. Other than that, the place looked just as it did before, and with much comfort in the familiarity of a place that we could almost call home. And he smiled when he noticed a few minor changes, and he placed his fingertips over the cover of the book as he looked to the title. Eventually his hand stopped over an illustrated book, and he sat down on the floor, flipping through its pages. And to see better, he removed his hat, and his long red curls fell over the pages of the book. and the part of the illustration are covered by his hair showed a skinny old geezer, armed with a lance and shield, and he was washing his armor and sword. And on the right you could make out the silhouette of a woman washing the old man, and for the background there were a few clouds and a pure white full moon. As he looked up from his reading when he heard the footsteps of someone approaching the library, and Iago opened the door gently, and he had not changed much these past 7 years. He had a few new wrinkles here and there, and also his eyes had the eternal tea bags for hardly ever getting any decent sleep. Iago went to the third bookcase and chose a book that was sticking out, and the book had a blue satin ribbon marker. And he sat down on his chair and he opened his book, and the warm gentle sun entered the room, and despite the warm sun, the lights in his room were all light, and heck, all the lights in the house were on. And this was the only way to have the elf slaves come, and the poor fool was too afraid of the dark. And Iago did not mind much the extra light in his study, and certainly did prevent him from straining his eyes out at night. While reading, Iago suddenly felt like having a snack, and he rang a bell which rested in the coffee table near the cushioned chair. And an elf maid entered the room with 5 cookies, 3 biscuits, and 6 sweetbreads, and a tea tray. The maid poured Iago some tea and then left the room, and during this process, Iago did not look up from his reading, and the maid didn't notice however she chose to ignore his presence. And when she left, he got up and he sat behind the coffee table, and from time to time his hand would reach for a snack. And Iago only noticed his presence when he reached for a snack, and he fell around and did not find anything in front, and he said, "By Artsy, how do these things keep getting inside the house? They are more persistent than the rodents." Like he thought that it was one of them baby feral dragons that was stealing his food. While searching around, his eyes landed on his hat, and he laid in a corner of the room, and the tiny feral dragon was still napping on top of the hat, and Iago got up and he grabbed the fire iron from the fireplace, and the dragon's eyes opened wide, and she heard Iago approach. And when she saw the fire iron, she purred playfully, and like a cat she got up and tried to catch the fire iron. And using the fire iron, Iago lured the dragon to a nearby window, and he opened it and he took the fire iron out of the window, and the baby dragon leaped out the window to get the fire iron. And Iago closed the door behind him, and he sighed with relief. When he turned around, his eyes opened wide, and he said below his breath, "You." And he smiled at Iago when they met face to face. Iago was deeply unnerved by his uncanny smile, and he could never get over the inhumanity of his feral dragon-like teeth. And the moment that he opened his mouth, all traces of humanity would leave his face. And he got up and he brushed his right hand on his pants, and then he stretched out his hand as if wanting to shake hands with Iago. Iago took his right hand, trembling, and with his left hand he took over both his hands to complete the handshake. And after the salute, Iago seemed more at ease, and this was the same as he from before. Iago sat down again, and he ran for his maid, and anticipating his wants, the maid brought extra snacks and a teacup for him, and she poured tea for Iago and him before departing. And he sat cross-legged beside Iago, and Iago watched the lad in silence, and he broke the silence by saying, "You have grown up quite a bit." And indeed, he had grown quite a bit, and now he was roughly 5 feet tall, and this meant that he had the average height of a 14-year-old brat, and his true form had recently suffered a growth spurt, and with more age he had gotten more in control of his power, and now his main form hid inside an area, and this arrangement made more dependent on his angler to experience the world around him, and as a result the angler had more sensitive and responsive. And not that having his undivided attention did the lad any good, and he smiled when he heard Iago addressing him, and he asked, "How old are you now?" He's 12, 13, and have you gotten any smarter, and what words do you know? "Define wisdom for me, Iago," asked he, sipping his tea. And Iago got up from the table, and he pulled out a dictionary, and he flipped to the pages to find the word wisdom, and he read it up. Wisdom, the soundness of an action or decision with regards to application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. "Father says so as well," said he pensively. "In your words I do not understand. To me they are no different than dragon tongues. In my words, my speech are nothing more than a facade. At any moment my actions will betray me." "It is still an improvement," he commented Iago, returning the dictionary, and he continued, "I heard rumors about you that say you ate a duke and pushed all of his guards." And he said nothing. He was trying to make sense of what Iago was trying to say to him. And Iago took his silence as an admittance of guilt, and he was not the kind of person to feel remorse, regret, or fear. and those feelings were alien to him, and at the moment he seemed very pensive, and he got up and nodded, and he came to a solemn resolution. Why did you come back? He asked Iago, and it was a question we all wanted to ask. I came back because I felt like it, and you humans are always overthinking things, looking for the why in every action. Indulge me, Iago, for a moment, said he, reaching for a book. And he threw the book at Iago, who dodged it in an instant. And he picked up the book, and he brushed off the dirt, and then he placed the book back in the shelf, and he continued, this is why I do things. I can mediate things. I can meditate things all you want, and think it has never done much good to our kind. And Iago became pensive for a moment, and he left Iago alone and then went to stand by the window, and eventually Iago sighed and went to continue with his reading. And after 5 minutes of meditation, he left the window with a new resolution, and he sat down beside Iago to continue his reading. And he was not much reading the book, and the words written on the pages had no meaning to him. What did the lad know about justice, honor, chivalry, and damsel in distress? He did a list like the pretty pictures. While he read, he asked the question he had managed to formulate. Iago, where did everyone go? There's only you and Eleanor. I had been wondering this since he had started on his way to Praga, and he found it out that he only recognized 2 familiar scents in the entire township of Praga. And Iago seemed a bit reluctant to answer the question, and he wondered greatly if he would even be able to comprehend his answer. Eventually, Iago decided to say, my family moved away to Veragheron, and they live a life of luxury, or so I've been told. They may use for hostages. As long as I continue to be useful, their lives are more or less guaranteed, and I am allowed to check on their well-being once every 2 months. And my folks seem happy enough, and as for Eleanor, we tried to take her. When we tried to take her, she ran away to the forest, and also tried to fetch her, met an untimely death, and now she gets to stay here to wait for you. I see, said he, and can you be certain that they are in bondage? It seems to me that they abandon you, and power gives people the ability to act in accordance with their true nature. And you, Iago, the power you have again has unmasked you and others around you, and you can see, and who can see you for what you truly are, and you haven't the moral authority to judge me. And Iago was taken aback by what he said. He couldn't deny the truth of what the kid said, and it almost felt as if he was his own consciousness speaking, and he continued, I have been thinking and thinking, and I had to stop thinking. It's never helped me. Iago looked up at his eyes and noticed that they were glassy and unblinking, and decided there was nothing new to Iago, and yes, he had not changed at all. But the strange, ominous mood did not look too promising. A ver.